So remember how in the last video I said the next recap would be less crazy? Yeah, I kinda lied. 90s horror was an interesting era. We had renowned classics like Misery, The Sixth Sense, and Scream, but we also had cult and indie classics that many have either never heard of or forgotten. Some of those movies, though seemingly low quality at first glance, have a certain je ne sais quoi. They aren't trying to be the next The Shining, it's usually just a director and their crew with a passion to make a movie promising a good time. Hello everybody, it's your friendly neighborhood Kipsy here, and today we'll be discussing one of those movies, Frankenhooker. Yes, you heard right, Frankenhooker, a black comedy horror film released in 1990, directed by Frank Henenlotter. Frank Henenlotter, by the way, has some pretty interesting movies under his belt, to say the least, the most notably being the Basket Case trilogy and Brain Damage, a movie I just might cover in the future. I remember seeing the trailer for Frankenhooker a few years ago and I didn't think much of it, but I recently rediscovered and rewatched the trailer, saw a few clips online and thought, holy moly, I need to find the full movie immediately. The trailer was crazy, but the movie itself was even crazier. It's very loosely inspired by the Frankenstein tale, and loosely inspired is correct. I was thoroughly entertained because this movie is so funny, so unserious and campy. It does a great job of taking a classic tale and spinning it in a fun way. I want you to be just as entertained as well, so let's not waste any time and take a deep dive into Frankenhooker. The movie opens up with an eye, and we're introduced to our main character, Jeffrey Franken. So original, I know. He's working on this thing. It's a singular eye that's surrounded by like brain matter, but Jeffrey is trying to work on its coordination. He almost has it following his hand movements when he's suddenly interrupted by his girlfriend's mom. We're introduced to said girlfriend, her name is Elizabeth. It's her father's birthday and everyone in the backyard is having a barbecue celebration. Elizabeth has a conversation with her friend and we learn a little bit more about her, Jeffrey, and their relationship.
Vegetable diets, fruit diets, pills, powders, Weight Watchers, and clinics. I even had Jeffrey staple my stomach and nothing helps.
Jeffrey stapled your stomach?
Yeah, but it didn't help much. I'm still a compulsive eater.
I didn't know Jeffrey was a doctor.
Well, yes and no.
I thought he worked for New Jersey Electric.
Oh, he does. He's just sort of a doctor in his spare time. Calls himself a bioelectro-technician, whatever that means.
Well, is he at least going to medical school?
Goodness, no. He's been kicked out of 3 of them already.
And you let him operate on you?
Well, of course. I mean, we're going to be married.
In the scenes where Elizabeth is present, we can see that her and Jeffrey are just two peas in a pod. They're both weird and quirky in their own way, so it's a perfect match. The cake is brought out and Elizabeth brings out her gift to her father. It's a remote-controlled lawnmower that Jeffrey made. She proceeds to explain how it works and even attempts a demonstration, and it doesn't go too well.
And it's so easy. You just turn it on like this.
Don't stand in front of it.
And this controls the speed and the direction. So when you want it to go, you just press this.
You're on your way, Jeff. Don't stand in front of it.
This was my first time seeing a death by lawnmower scene. I don't think any other movie before Frankenhooker has done this, but if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. We cut to the opening credits, the background showing us Jeffrey drawing on a female human diagram with a picture of Elizabeth's face on it, implying that this is him starting his plan to bring her back to life. By the way, he's mumbling to himself the whole time, and some things he says made me chuckle.
This was the problem, the mole, right? I'm gonna get that mole. There might be a little concave hole.
He's obviously been going through it since Elizabeth's death. He looks like he hasn't slept in days. He has a small shrine for Elizabeth, and is almost making out with her photos as well. He pulls out a tape that has a news segment on the incident, and let me tell you, this feels like a skit. Like, it technically is a skit because it's for the movie, but it's so... Just listen to the news lady and look at the police officer.
Old bride-to-be Elizabeth Shelley Like wood through a mulcher, the girthful fiancée disappeared beneath the blades of the berserk mower that sent her personality raining down upon the horrified birthday revelers. In a blaze of blood, bones, and body parts, the vivacious young girl was instantly reduced to a tossed human salad, a salad that police are still trying to gather up, a salad that was once named Elizabeth.
See what I mean? A tossed human salad? Like, why'd she have to say it 5 times? The segment also hints that a few body parts were missing from the scene, specifically the head of Elizabeth. When the news lady tries to interview Jeffrey, he claims he doesn't know where the head is.
Oh, excuse me. You saw the accident happen?
I don't want to talk about it.
And you have no idea what happened to the head?
I don't know. I didn't see it. The last time I saw it, it was spinning through the air. Why don't you just leave people alone with their grief, huh?
Yes, that's it.
And now we're all looking at Jeffrey like,
why the fuck you lying? Why you always lying?
Jeffrey's mom comes in shortly after. Oh hey, it's this little guy. Aren't you the cutest little abomination? To cut it short, they have a one-to-one, Jeffrey's mom noticing her son's current state, saying that this isn't healthy for him, that he needs to go out, get better, even open up to the idea of finding a new girlfriend. But he rejects the idea, while also opening up about his own feelings. He feels like he's dissociating and can't distinguish reality and fantasy. He's struggling with right and wrong, and going further into detail about those feelings. His mother leaves the room after the talk, and later Jeffrey sneaks out into his science shed. He goes to the cooler, and when he opens it, it has a mysterious purple liquid bubbling inside. He starts to grab whatever's in there, and the scene transitions. It's confirmed that he does in fact have Elizabeth's head and 3 other parts. The cooler liquid has kept it surprisingly intact and not decaying. He goes on talking to Elizabeth over a candlelit piece of dinner. He gives her a sip of wine and discusses ideas for her new body, which is just photos of her head on top of what I can only assume to be porn stars. Disclaimer, this movie is boobs galore, and this is one of the many scenes where boobies and a few butts are just out with no warning. Jeffrey continues talking and eating for a bit, and after dinner, Elizabeth heads back into the cooler. Jeffrey is talking to himself a lot, by the way, and a lot of the information that we receive in the first 30 minutes is just from him talking to himself or Elizabeth's photos. He's back to his drawing board and he's torn. There's a storm coming in 2 days and he needs fresh body parts for this to work. The only conflict is that in order for Elizabeth to live, someone has to die. To me, this establishes that Jeffrey isn't a greedy mad scientist that does science stuff for science just willy-nilly. He really loves Elizabeth, so much that he's considering going to the extremes to get her back. But at the same time, he doesn't know if he's willing to go through with harming somebody in order for that to happen. He has a cluster headache and can't think straight, but does he pop an aspirin? Nope. He pulls out a drill and performs a non-lethal self-trepanation. But don't worry, he has a 3D brain model, so he knows exactly where to drill and not kill himself. This is the unserious part of the movie I was talking about. I think even with a strategy like Jeffrey has, I don't know if you're gonna survive a trepanation without any consequences. One wrong move to the left and Jeffrey is in heaven with Elizabeth, living happily ever after with her up there. But with that little itch of the brain, Jeffrey figures it out.
It's so simple. If I need female body parts, then I'll buy female body parts. And there's a place across the river where there are thousands of women anxious to sell their parts, with no questions asked. Of course, with the right amount of cash. I do have my Christmas Club account.
He hits the city, New York City to be exact, still talking to himself, by the way. Fun fact, I actually watched a panel from New Jersey Horror Con 2019 where Frankenhooker actors James Lawrence and Patty Mullen, who play Jeffrey and Elizabeth, discussed the film and more. I'll post a separate video actually reacting to this shortly, so stay tuned for that. Jeffrey pulls up to a bar and grill, and a woman walks up offering him a good time. And oh boy, yeah, there it is. There goes the boobies. The lady asks Jeffrey if he's got any money, and he pulls out a band. This sends her wild and she's begging to get into the car. Jeffrey explains that he actually needs more girls. So the lady calls over her friend Amber and we get a solid 14 seconds of Amber sexy walking to the car. Jeffrey's like, no, you got it all wrong, and makes up a story that he has a dying brother and he wants to throw a party for him, so he needs about 6 to 7 beautiful girls. They agree, but say that he needs to take it up with Zoro, their macho muscle pimp. Oh, and he sells crack too. So we still don't have a name for this lady, from what I remember. I even checked the credits, but if I am correct in my guessing, she's under Mary Jane, so we're just gonna call her Mary. Mary takes Jeffrey inside the bar and grill to meet with Zoro. On the way, we get some more boobs galore, and this journey to Zoro's location is so weird as they walk through the hallways and the groups of people, but then again, if you're not a regular to these types of spaces, it makes sense for it to look and feel this weird. We're introduced to Zoro, but he's busy, and Jeffrey has to awkwardly stand there while some hoo-ha is happening in the background. Zoro finally pays attention to Jeffrey. They have a little chit-chat, and Zoro agrees to let Jeffrey come back another day and choose the girls that he wants for his party. Jeffrey also buys a small bag of cocaine before leaving. He returns home, watching a TV segment that's coincidentally discussing cocaine. And what has he done after agreeing that cocaine is bad and killing people? My boy Jeffrey invents a comically big old jar of super crack. This is not the shit you buy at a dark alley, it's even worse. The Cocaine Awareness TV segment shows a secretly recorded clip of what appears to be Zoro harassing one of his girls. The girl on camera is blonde, and Jeffrey starts imagining that this is Elizabeth being harassed by Zoro, and he is triggered by this imagery. He tries to calm himself down, performing another non-lethal self-trepidation, and oh look, a free close-up this time around. No blood at all, by the way, that's very impressive. Now Jeffrey is still somewhat torn because he has a sad but effective plan to use the super crack on the girls that he's going to be choosing for this party in order to obtain the fresh body parts that he needs for Elizabeth. Considering these girls and others in the area are dying to crack daily, it's just another Tuesday for them, unfortunately, and Jeffrey even acknowledges this, but he tries to justify it in his head. It's not like he's gonna stab anybody or shoot anybody. He's not gonna force the girls to take the super crack. There's no gun to their head. He's just gonna leave it out in their presence, and they don't have to use it. If they're offered, they can just say no. Jeffrey tests the super crack on a hamster, and there's no light way of putting this. The hamster explodes. Just falls apart like a Lego set. I was afraid it was gonna be more graphic, but it was actually pretty goofy. We cut to Jeffrey back in the city, reuniting with Mary, and she brings him to the room rented for him for the night. He's in the room, and suddenly he's dressed up like a Party City doctor. Mary introduces every girl in the room, most of them with the boobies out, and she explains to the girls to cooperate with Jeffrey, cause now he's a good friend of Zoro's. We get a montage of him examining every girl, measuring legs, arms, the diameters of their boobs and asses. We even get an unnecessary zoom on a girl's nipple, and Jeffrey gives it a little boop. Man, this movie. Eventually, he finishes his examinations, and Mary reminds him that he has to pick a girl ASAP so that the rest of them can leave. But Jeffrey is again having second thoughts, accidentally saying Elizabeth's name. The girls get confused, Jeffrey rants a bit more, and he throws the bag of money at Mary, implying that he's not going to go through with this plan anymore. But Jeffrey forgot one important thing. Not only does the bag have the money that he was supposed to pay, it also has a large bag of the super crack inside. And the girls go nuts.
Holy shit, jump! Stupid jump! Holy shit, let me jump!
Wait. Put that back. That's supposed to be for the winner.
Look at this, girls! The party ain't over yet!
Jeffrey tries to stop them, but he is overpowered by all the women. They start to smoke up the super crack, music is playing, and they're dancing, just having a good old time. But eventually, this happens, and I'm just gonna let it play.
Whoa. Oh, God.
She's gonna blow. She's gonna blow. Duck and cover.
Isn't it awfully hot in here?
Take it easy.
like this is the best movie ever made. I said it. This is the best movie in cinema history. Argue with the wall, I don't care. The Matrix who? Jurassic Park what? Who needs Pulp Fiction and Kill Bill when you have super crack and combustion explosions all in one film? During all of this, Zoro is getting impatient and he Putin stomps into the hallway. He hears the commotion and starts smashing the door to the room. Jeffrey is trying to escape but is stopped by Mary standing over him with a knife, obviously upset at what's happening. But luck is on Jeffrey's side, because right on cue, Mary explodes and her very convincing head is flying across the room. Right as Zoro busts through the door, he is knocked out cold by Mary's head. Jeffrey gets up and looks at the damage, apologizing to the dead girls and just rambling as he collects the parts that he needs. Cause I mean, his plan did work. Maybe not the way he wanted it to work, but he's just not gonna leave these parts to rot. He escapes through the window, gets in his car, and drives home with the bag of parts. Jeffrey starts working fast as the storm is approaching soon. We get some funny lines from him examining the parts that he was able to grab.
Too soft. Okay, what's this? Please, no good. Mutt and Jeff. Oh my God. Bunions!
He brings out the final piece, Elizabeth's head. He puts the parts that he's not using into the cooler with the purple liquid, promising that once he's done with Elizabeth, he'll bring them all back when he has a chance. I don't know how that's gonna work, but hey, I'm not the doctor here. And neither is Jeffrey, actually. It's finally time for what we all have been waiting for. The storm is here, and Jeffrey opens up the roof. He pulls the power switch, and we watch the machine do its thing. He connects some bolts and raises the platform higher than I thought it was gonna go. The lightning strikes, electricity coursing through the platform and body. But we cut to the cooler and the other body parts. The electricity also reaches to it. This is important later. Jeffrey brings the platform back down, the creation standing up. He takes off the drape, calling out Elizabeth, and we see her in her mix and match glory. He tries to talk to her, but then...
Want a date? Going out? Looking for some action? Need some company?
No, wait, huh? It's Jeffrey.
Got any money?
Money? No, I don't have any money.
So it turns out that Elizabeth is currently only capable of speaking in the common phrases and previous sentences from the girls that she's paired with. The new Elizabeth walks out the shed, leaving the knocked out Jeffrey behind. And that face, yeah, the face is pure comedy gold. We get a few more of those later on in the movie. I guess it's the electrodes running through her body. Elizabeth finds herself in the subway, and everyone is obviously taken aback by her looks. Jeffrey finally wakes up, screaming for Elizabeth and realizing that she's escaped and is most likely heading to the city. He starts to run after her, stops, and then remembers, oh yeah, I have a car, and drives off. We cut to Elizabeth, and she's having some good old-fashioned social interaction.
Want a date? You going out?
No thanks. I'm on my way home, but thanks anyway.
Jeffrey! We've only got a few minutes left.
She turns around and repeats one of Mary's lines from earlier, referencing Jeffrey, but she's actually not talking to Jeffrey.
Woman yet?
Oh, yes, God, yes, take me, yes.
As you can see, this is the best day of this man's life. Elizabeth takes the little man to the complex where the incident happened previously, and with her repeated lines from Mary, this allows her to grab a room with the man. And this is the creepiest face I've seen in a movie. Like, the smile on this guy, like, I really couldn't stare at it for too long. I had to either rewind or fast forward when I was typing the script and watching this. And I'm gonna try and show this as best as I can. Elizabeth's butt cheek has a check mark on it because when Jeffrey was examining the girls earlier, he found the perfect butt and marked it so he can remember for later. I thought it was funny to mention. Elizabeth and the little man start getting frisky, but there's suddenly smoke. And it turns out that Elizabeth's hands are burning the little man and he just explodes. Did I mention this movie's great? Jeffrey finally makes it to the city, asking several guys if he's seen her. This last one made me laugh out loud. When I first saw it, I can't explain why.
Hey, excuse me.
Please, you gotta help me out here. I'm looking for my girlfriend. She's very sick. I gotta get her medicine. She's tall. She's purple. She's got some scars on her. A purple outfit. Have you seen her around here?
Oh ja, 4 of them. But I have had 2 for myself.
What are you talking about? What are you, some kind of a Swede? You're talking to me in Swedish in Times Square. Elizabeth!
Elizabeth makes it out of the room, not without taking the cash that she's owed, #girlboss. However, she's stopped by another guy, he makes some small talk and forcefully kisses her, but then he gets electrocuted as well, and explodes too. So rule number 1, do not touch Elizabeth. Elizabeth continues to walk around, continuing to scream her repeated lines as she makes her way back to the bar and grill owned by Zoro. Speaking of Zoro, we catch a glimpse of him talking about what happened to his homie, and he's really upset about it, to say the least.
No, they didn't leave. They didn't go nowhere. They just blew up.
Blew up?
Fucking exploded. 1 minute they're my bitches, the next they're pieces all over.
But his boy gives him some awesome words of encouragement.
Well, when a man loses his house, he loses everything.
I didn't lose them, man. They just blew up.
Elizabeth walks in, eyeing a bowl of pretzels and munching on them, because, you know, at the beginning of the movie, she was eating pretzels and mentions how much she loves them. She mentions Jeffrey in one of her repetitive lines, and Zoro is paying attention to her now. His friend takes Elizabeth to a booth, and after some small talk, he starts to go downtown on her, with this person going,
"Ooh, honey, look at this thing."
Like, that wasn't needed in the scene, but at the same time, it was kind of funny. Suddenly, we get the same smoke that we saw earlier, and well, you know what happens next.
Anyone got a stem?
Okay, pause. We have some very mixed reactions throughout this whole entire movie. Those reactions being either overwhelming or underwhelming and not matching what's happening half the time. But Zoro's reaction? That's the reaction to a balloon popping. That's the reaction to your sibling hiding behind a couch and popping out to scare you. This is not the reaction of witnessing your friend explode while giving a girl fellatio. Zoro confronts Elizabeth and he's just like,
Who the fuck are you? How come you don't bought me a Jersey boy? This ain't your tattoo. This ain't your arm. Where'd you get this arm? This is one of my bitches' arms. Who the fuck are you?
like every time he talks, it's always just like, my bitches. This ain't your arm, it's my bitches' arm. 1 minute they're my bitches, next minute they're gone. Elizabeth pushes Zoro away, but then he comes back with a swing and knocks her head almost completely off. During all this, Jeffrey has been continuing his search for Elizabeth.
Lament when they see the smoke of her burning.
So you've seen her?
She's in the bar.
God bless.
He makes his way inside, finds Elizabeth, and takes her out of the bar into his car. And we see Zoro walking out of the bar, hailing for a taxi to follow them. We cut to Jeffrey, back in the lab, fixing Elizabeth's neck, adding some new bolts and re-electrocuting her in hopes of bringing her back for real this time.
Elizabeth, I know you're not a hooker. You're not a hooker, Elizabeth. You're not. You're not.
Of course I'm not. Why in the world would you ever say anything like that, Jeffrey?
Elizabeth, is that you?
What are we doing here? What happened to Mom and Dad and the party?
You don't remember?
The lawnmower! Oh God, what's happened to me?
And she's back, but confused, as she regains her memory of the accident. Jeffrey explains almost everything, and she surprisingly takes it almost well. But in the same exact moment, Zoro walks in. Jeffrey, unaware of Zoro's presence, is like, oh my gosh, Elizabeth, we can finally be back together forever. But then Zoro grabs a knife and cuts Jeffrey's head clean off.
Oh, God! Why did you do this? Who are you?
No. The question is, who are you? And for what I've been hearing, your ass is mine. I'm taking possession of it now. You hear me, honey? You hear me, Crystal? You hear me, Angel?
But do you guys remember the cooler that had the extra parts of the girls that were then later electrified? Well, a hand pops up out of the cooler, opening its door and tumbling it over, the purple liquid and its contents spilling out. It is revealed that the electricity merged some of the body parts together, creating disfigured and conjoined body horror monstrosities. Zoro is attacked by the body parts, slowly being restrained and pushed into the cooler and attacked. The door closes, but oh wait, cannot forget about that bag of crack. Can't let that go to waste. This is what I mean by the underwhelming and overwhelming reactions. Like, Jeffrey gets his head cut off and Elizabeth, is obviously upset, but then this whole sequence of events happens and she's just completely unfazed. She's just like, oh, well, that worked. She walks over and picks up Jeffrey's head, saying, "Jeffrey, I have an idea." We cut to Elizabeth calling out to Jeffrey as he wakes up. He's alive. It seems like Elizabeth figured out how to bring him back as well. But there's a catch. Earlier, Jeffrey explains that the purple liquid in his cooler is estrogen-based, meaning that he can only bring back women to life. So Elizabeth couldn't reattach his head back to his own body, or even to Zoro's body. So to Jeffrey's horror, Elizabeth has brought him back, but his head is attached to the body of a woman. And that's it! We just witnessed the best, most unserious movie ever made, and I loved it. Frankenhooker was definitely a wild ride, but it was funny, campy, and surprisingly a good story in my opinion. Now, does it really compare to something like The Godfather? Absolutely. I'm kidding. It doesn't. But it's also not a bad movie either. Most bad movies promise to be really, really good and compared to highly rated movies, but then you watch them and they're severely lacking in one or more aspects. But Frankenhooker is just promising a good time, and it delivered a good time. Now, I do think some moments were a bit strange or unnecessary. I think some scenes could have been a bit longer or shortened, and the pacing overall I think could have been a little bit better, but none of those were deal breakers for me personally. So overall, I had a refreshing time watching and discussing Frankenhooker, and I hope you guys did too, because this is the end of the video. Show some love and support to your new favorite space girl. This can be done with a like, share, and especially a click of the subscribe button, because I have more videos coming your way very soon. I appreciate you all for joining me on this fun, wild ride of a movie recap. If you'd like to follow me on my other socials, those links will be in the description, including my Patreon link. Hope to see you in the next video. Stay safe, stay beautiful, and treat yourself to a donut this week.